Hello, everyone. It is Ms. White again with another video for VCE philosophy. Today, I'm going to be reading just one section of Nietzsche, section 225, Problems with Pleasure-Based Morality. So I'm only going to be reading this section. In another video that will be uploaded soon, will be all of the other sections from the 2025 VCE text list. However, I start with this one and have it separate because this is more to do with the pleasure and self-discipline side of the key questions. So I'm going to read through this, talk you through what my thoughts are, and I hope you enjoy. So in this, we can kind of say that this is part 7 of Nietzsche, which is our virtues is sort of the unofficial title, and section 225 is about problems with pleasure-based morality. So we can see from the very beginning, Nietzsche says, whether it be hedonism or pessimism or utilitarianism or eudaimonism, all these modes of thought which assess the values of things according to pleasure and pain, that is to say, according to attendant and secondary phenomena, are foreground modes of thought and naiveties which anyone conscious of creative powers and an artist's conscience will look down on with derision, though not without pity. So I've read that really quickly, but if we go back and have a look at what are we saying from the beginning. So from the very beginning, we have a little nod to Callicles if we consider him a hedonist. So focusing on pleasure as the good. Pessimism, we've probably heard of. Utilitarianism, so when we think of people like Singer and getting the most happiness or pleasure, or utility for utilitarianism is what is the right or moral thing to do. And then eudaimonism with Aristotle, so that type of happiness. He's like all of these modes of thought. And he says that all of these modes of thought value things according to pleasure and pain, which is true. We've got pleasure, it's all about pleasure. Pessimism isn't super important to this study design. Utilitarianism, it's mostly happiness, but sometimes it's preferences. And eudaimonism, eudaimonia, happiness. So all these modes of thoughts, it's about pleasure and pain. And it is that, he says, and is to say, according to attendant and secondary phenomena, are foregrounds of ground modes of thought and naive. If you subscribe to one of these views or a pleasure-based view on the world or on morality, you're naive, which anyone conscious of creative powers and an artist's conscience will look down with derision. So if you are creative, if you are a creator, you have an artist's conscience, you're going to think that these are pretty dumb views. And I guess, spoiler alert, this is because pleasure is not conducive to greatness, according to Nietzsche. So, good and pleasure aren't related, is what he has said so far. Pity for you, that, to be sure, is not pity for social distress, for society and its sick and unfortunate, with the vicious and broken from for the vicious and broken from the start, who lie all around us. Even less is it pity for the grumbling, oppressed, rebellious slave classes who aspire after domination. They call it freedom. Our pity is more elevated. So those of us who are above the herd, above the slaves, which we'll get to more once we get to freedom and authenticity. But those of us who are above those slave classes, our pity is more elevated, a more far-sighted pity. We see how man is diminishing himself, how you are diminishing him. And there are times when we behold your pity with an indescribable anxiety, when we defend ourselves against this pity, when we find your seriousness more dangerous than any kind of frivolity. You want, if possible, And there is no matter, if possible, to abolish suffering. And here is the big problem he has with pleasure-based morality and all of those slave class people, is they want to abolish suffering. And we, those of us who are above those slave classes, it really does seem that we would rather increase it and make it worse than it has ever been. So he thinks that suffering is super important. And that is what the problem with pleasure based moralities or pleasure based value systems ignore. They fail to recognize the significance of suffering to human greatness. We need to suffer, he thinks, because it makes us strong. It means we tried something really hard. So, a morality of safety or security, which we're going to get onto with well-being, harms us. We want to bring on the danger and suffering. So he says, well-being, as you understand it, that is no goal. That seems to us an end, a state which soon renders man ludicrous and contemptible, which makes it desirable that he should perish. The discipline of suffering, of great suffering. Do you not know that it is this discipline alone which has created every elevation of mankind hitherto? So every good thing has come from suffering. That tension of the soul in misfortune, which cultivates its strength, its terror at the sight of great destruction, its inventiveness and bravery in undergoing, enduring, interpreting, exploiting misfortune, and whatever of depth, mystery, mask, spirit, cunning, and greatness has been bestowed upon it, has it not been bestowed through suffering? Aren't these things from suffering? All these good things that we have had, all these things that make us authentic people, all these things that make us free people, through suffering, through the discipline of great suffering. So it's not necessarily the suffering itself is good, but I guess the way that you overcome suffering. And you can't overcome suffering if all you care about is pleasure. Now, the next bit that we have is this bit about creature and creator. And this is some language that is often useful when we talk about Nietzsche. So, in man, creature and creator are united. In man, there is matter, fragment, excess, clay, madness, chaos. But in man, there is also creator. So, there is the more creature, the base element of us. But the creator is what we really want to look at. The creator, the sculptor, the hardness of the hammer, the divine spectator and the seventh day. Do you understand this antithesis? And your pity is for the creature in man. So when we pity people and when we pity this sort of style of living, we pity the creature. For that which has to be formed, broken, forged, torn, burned, annealed, refined, that which has to suffer and should suffer, and our pity, so us who are better, do you not grasp whom our opposite pity is for when it defends itself against your pity as the worst of all pampering and weakening? Sorry, sneeze. Pity against pity then. But to repeat, there are higher problems than the problem of pleasure and pain and pity, and every philosophy that treats only of them is a piece of naivety. So he thinks we need to pity the creature, pity not the creature. We need to pity the creator. We are creators, and that is the sort of how we elevate ourselves to the best thing we can possibly be. The creature is really happy, it flourishes on pleasure, but the creator needs that suffering so it can overcome and so that it can become the best version of itself, because that's how we reach greatness. So he thinks that morality or our viewpoints in life, I guess, when we're looking at our key questions in VCE, our viewpoints should not be about effort or should be about effort and creativity, sorry, not alleviating pain and gaining pleasure. We should embrace the suffering. So I hope that is helpful. And I hope you can question some of the things that we've already learned about pleasure and self-discipline. Do we actually need to look at the opposite side of the spectrum? Are we actually needing suffering? Do we need the opposite of pleasure in order to be the best versions of ourselves we possibly can be? Thank you for listening, and I'll see you later.